If you think things are great in Canada and medical care is much better up there and more affordable, well, we're about to find out what it's really like here in the US very soon, as the government is about to put drug manufacturers in a headlock in a negotiation that is a farce. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Rick McDermott here with Senior Solutions Group, and we help retirees and pre-retirees understand Medicare and retirement. And if you haven't subscribed already, feel free to do so, and please share this with a friend. This is a very important topic today, and we're going to want to hear from you. We're going to hear your comments and your thoughts and concerns about this topic. So getting right in, we have a lot of people that we've helped with Medicare prescription drug cost, and a lot of people that are on inexpensive drugs, very easy to do. We can find a plan that's usually under $20 a month, and you can get your drugs at a nominal cost, maybe even free. Those of you who are on Eliquis and other more expensive drugs, inhalers, cancer drugs, that's not the case. So we're in a crisis here with healthcare costs in America. The system is broken. So it doesn't matter what you feel about this. There needs to be change, but is this the right path we are taking? About a year ago, President Biden signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act. This is the signature ceremony dated August 16th. And Democrats have nudged the U.S. healthcare system closer to Canadian-style socialism. This is a Forbes article from about a year ago. We'll have a link to it down below. Democrats have nudged the U.S. healthcare system closer to Canadian-style socialism with their recently signed, dubiously named Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, will impose a collection of price caps on prescription drugs. Canada has long forcibly controlled drug prices and thereby deprived patients of access to cutting-edge care. The story will be the same in the U.S. unless a future Congress and President, or in this case, maybe the Supreme Court, more on that later, roll back the IRA's price controls, the Inflation Reduction Act, before they take effect in 2026. So a little background. Right now, there is no out-of-pocket limit on your prescription drugs if you're on Medicare and you have a Part D prescription drug plan, either by itself or embedded within a Medicare Advantage plan. So if you end up with a lot of medications that you need and the cost is hundreds of dollars a month, there is no limit on what you would pay in co-pays, deductibles, cost sharing. In 2025, there will be a $2,000 cap. We're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. So among the Inflation Reduction Act's suite of price controls is a provision that empowers Medicare to negotiate, in parentheses, negotiate, very loosely worded negotiate prices with drug manufacturers. Think of it as a headlock, not a negotiation. So it doesn't matter what you think about drug companies, whether they're evil, whether they're great, somewhere in the middle. This is going to affect all of us. These drugs, 10 drugs, will be subject to negotiation in 2026, 15 in 2027, and 2028, 20 in 2029. So this article is saying it's disingenuous to call the process negotiation, again in parentheses, negotiation. It's more like coercion. Any firm, any company like Merck that refuses the government's offer will face an excise tax of up to 95% of sales on that medication, or will have to withdraw all their therapies from Medicare and Medicaid. So if we ran out of gas as a country, or if the world ran out of gas, which some people hope that it does because they want to go all electric. Imagine electric 18-wheelers trying to haul these payloads. If that happened and Elon Musk was forced to sell his Teslas for $15,000 so everyone can afford one, and what would he say? Would he say, oh yes, let's go for it. Yeah, I'm all in. Or would he be like this? So this was back from Obamacare, when it was kind of back in the day when they were promoting government-run healthcare. What's the doctor going to do if they're going to give it all for free? Because we all know nothing's free. So we've seen it in Canada. We're on our way. So a lot of people have concerns about this. A majority of voters, this is back in 2015, so it is a number of years old. A majority of voters, 51% compared to 36%, Again, it doesn't matter where you land on this, this is going to affect you. Oppose allowing the federal government to set a price of prescription medications. So we have these price controls. Starting September, the drugs will be selected. That's right around the corner. And then the negotiations, which will be secret, the government will not allow these to be made public. They will be in smoke-filled backroom deals that are made where they actually will put these drug manufacturers on notice and basically in a headlock saying you will charge no more than this price, and if you don't accept it, you will pay steep fines. I don't think Elon Musk would continue to make Teslas, by the way. We're finding out that these controls in Canada has limited what these Canadian people can get. The Canadian experience reveals just how dangerous a government with a penchant for price controls can be. Canada's patented Medicine Price Review Board conducts cost-benefit analysis of each new drug introduced in the country. If this board determines that the cost of a medication is too high, it can just reduce the price unilaterally. In some cases, this mandated price is so severe that a drug company decides not to launch a product in Canada. So these price controls are necessary to protect Canadians, they claim. But thanks to its policies, Canadians lack access to cutting-edge drugs. Of the 290 medications introduced between 2011 and 2018, just 44% were available to Canadians, according to this research from the Galen Institute. Americans had access to 89%. We're well on our way, potentially, to experience what Canadians are experiencing. So the inevitable consequence in Canada is long waits for treatment because it also affects doctors. Doctors and specialists don't get paid by procedure in Canada. They get paid basically a budget per year, like a salary. So the inevitable consequences is long waits for treatment. Last year, Canadians waited a median of 25 and a half a year, roughly half a year to receive care from a specialist after a referral from a general practitioner. Now this is where it gets crazy. Now, it doesn't matter where you land on the whole euthanasia subject. It does matter, but it's important to know that to further conserve the state's resources, Canadian officials are embracing euthanasia, according to a recent reporting from the Associated Press. Canadian law allows any patient with a serious illness or disability to request medical assistance in dying. More than 31,000 patients have been put to death since euthanasia became legal in 2016. Now this is a year ago when this article came out. So the figures are a little bit old, not that old though. It makes it the 6th leading cause of death in Canada. Here's a story about doctors have improved euthanasia for Canadians with conditions as common as hearing loss. Others have suggested medically assisted death to patients who aren't otherwise considering it. Perhaps providers were worried about staying within their government-controlled budget. After all, putting a patient to death is cheaper than delivering long-term care. In Canada, government price controls have proven deadly. Importing them stateside with the Inflation Reduction Act will have similar consequences. This is an article by Forbes. We'll have that below as well for you to reference. So we are all along this path right here. This is a Kaiser Foundation chart. So this kind of shows the timeline of where we're at. These negotiated prices won't take effect until 2026 at the earliest with the first round of drugs. So this is an article that came out just Tuesday, this week, a couple days ago. Merck, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and Bristol Myers have sued the Biden administration over Medicare's new drug price negotiations. So the battle is on. And the lawyers they have selected are all former Supreme Court clerks. So they know where this is headed. It's headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The pharmaceutical industry, and again, whatever you think about them, whether they're evil or not, whether they're good or not, or somewhere in the middle, they're aiming to strike down Medicare's historic new powers to slash drug prices for seniors through a Supreme Court ruling, legal experts say. Drug makers Merck, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and Bristol-Myers Squibb filed separate lawsuits within days of each other this month, asking federal courts in D.C., Southern District of Ohio, and New Jersey to declare price negotiations unconstitutional under the First and Fifth Amendments. So these are just the opening salvo of what will go down as a historic and potentially decisive battle over the federal government's efforts to control rising drug prices. No one denies that this is a problem. We have clients often in tears. How am I going to pay for this? We do our dead level best here at Senior Solutions Group. We don't always have the right solution. We don't have a magic wand, I should say, for some of these drug costs. Something needs to be done. But is this the right way? Again, your comments are very valuable. We want to hear what you have to think about this. So the Inflation Reduction Act, passed by party line vote of almost a year ago, gave Medicare the power to negotiate, again in parentheses, negotiate prices for the very first time in the government's nearly 60-year history, a watershed moment that the Democratic Party had long fought for. The pharmaceutical industry views the program as posing a major threat to revenue and profits. The companies claim the program will stifle future drug development in the U.S. Well, look what's happened in Canada. Merck fears its blockbuster cancer therapy, Keytruda, which generates 35% of the company's $59 billion revenue in 2022, will be targeted by the program in the future. The company also worries the federal government will select its type 2 diabetes drug, Januvia, which we have clients that are on, which generates $2.8 billion in revenue for negotiations this year. We'll skip down. Bristol-Myers Squibb is trying to protect its blood thinner, Eliquis. We have literally hundreds of clients on Eliquis, which brought in $11.8 billion in sales last year, or about 25% of the company's $46 billion revenue for 2022. So these drugs kind of prop up the companies as well as they lose patents and more drugs go generic, and help pay for research and development of these drugs to recoup some of the losses. Again, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for these companies. Don't feel sorry for them, but they are fighting for their bottom line, as any company would do if they're being put in the vice by the government. These are the first lawsuits challenging Medicare's new powers, but they are unlikely to be the last. So this is just the first round. So this is the actual Merck complaint filed in the United States District Court for D.C. Merck is the plaintiff, and Xavier Becerra, who is the Health and Human Services Secretary, they are suing him in his official capacity amongst the other government entities involved in this. So the opening argument is, last summer, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, Congress established something called the Drug Price Negotiation Program for Medicare. The program's name suggests a framework under which federal officials sit down with prescription drug manufacturers and negotiate voluntary price agreements that will save money for American taxpayers, while ensuring that the companies remain able to continue investing billions of dollars into research and development in new life-saving medicines. This is certainly how the government, the Congress, the president, and agency officials have described and sold the program to the American people. After all, who would impose letting Medicare benefit from negotiated contracts, the basic building blocks of our market economy? In reality, this drug price negotiation program is a sham. Now, this is Merck's attorney's argument. You may not believe it's a sham. You may think this is the best thing that could have ever happened. Again, we want your comments. It involves neither genuine negotiations, nor real agreements, parentheses. Rather, once HHS unilaterally selects a drug for inclusion in the program, its manufacturer, so they cherry pick the drugs based on utilization and cost and the most popular drugs that people need, that doctors are prescribing. Its manufacturer is compelled to sign an agreement promising to sell the drug to many Medicare beneficiaries at whatever fair price the agency dictates, which must represent at least 25 to 60% discount. If a manufacturer refuses to participate in this negotiation or declines to agree to sell it at the mandated price, it incurs a ruinous daily excise tax amounting to multiples of the drug's daily revenues. Once the government successfully coerces entry into such an agreement, that manufacturer becomes legally compelled to sell its most valuable products for a fraction of their value on pain of yet more draconian penalties. This is not negotiation. It is tantamount to extortion. And it violates the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, which we hold sacred, at least we should, at least most of us do, in at least two obvious respects. The first, to start with, is the Fifth Amendment, which requires the government to pay just compensation if it takes property for public use. So if they're building a highway, they can't just take your house and offer you 20 cents on the dollar. They have to give you fair compensation. Yet the singular purpose of this scheme is for Medicare to obtain prescription drugs without paying fair market value. So we're going to have this embedded as well, the link to this below the video. I'm going to skip down to a couple bullet points and we're going to wrap this up. So in point number 41, and there are several points, we're skipping over most of them. Imagine if a restaurant that served filet mignon was required to charge $10 for their filet mignon instead of $65. How many restaurants would still serve filet mignon? Just a thought. So, point number 41. Not only are these negotiations disingenuous, they are also secret. Why would they want to be kept secret? CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which runs Medicare, has announced that manufacturers shall not disclose to the public any information in the initial offer or any subsequent offer by Medicare CMS, the ceiling price contained in any offer, any information contained in any concise justification provided with an offer. So basically, keep your mouth shut. No video, no audio recordings either. In short, once a manufacturer is sucked into the Inflation Reduction Act's vortex of below market sales, it has at its disposal no evident means of escape. The Inflation Reduction Act's convoluted process of sham negotiations and agreements raise an obvious question. Why did Congress proceed this way? Congress could have pursued its economic goals in a more direct fashion by simply imposing price caps or using Medicare's market power to induce discounts through genuine negotiation. These options, however, would have left the door open for manufacturers to walk away from the table, to refuse to contract with Medicare over a particular drug if the price was not acceptable. And that would have carried a political cost by angering seniors unable to access their medications. And who would they blame? They'd blame the government. True negotiations, or even price caps without forced sales, were thus unpalatable for the government. Even still, Congress could have set prices and mandated sales without forcing companies to engage in sham negotiations or to agree with the final price. That would have been an unconstitutional taking, but a far simpler one. So the only plausible explanation in the lawsuit they're stating is that the choice that the government picked is political. Congress evidently saw upside in rebranding top-down price controls and mandates, interventions often associated with rationing and shortages, as negotiated voluntary agreements. So in World War II, I was not born yet, there were rationing on many, many items: food, gas, sugar. So these draconian methods, which are used in wartime, are being possibly imposed on our healthcare system. So we have an issue to deal with. This is an important topic that is affecting everyone. If it's not affecting you, it's affecting your parents. If it's not affecting your parents, it's affecting your grandparents, and will someday affect you. So those of you who are concerned about this, please contact your congressman. Feel free to comment below. I want to hear your feedback on this. We're going to have the links to the lawsuit, and we're going to keep you updated on this as it proceeds. Our concern is, in the next year or two, standalone Part D drug plans are going to be stripped of drugs that are covered under these plans, and they're going to become more and more expensive. So that same drug plan that you're paying $10, $15, $20 a month today might cost a lot more in the future, and you will have fewer drugs to pick from that are offered by these plans. Or the insurance companies may just opt out of the market completely. They may just pull the plan. They may pull the plug and walk away, offering you fewer choices. So we don't want to play the game with our hands tied behind our back. We want to be in full battle to protect your options as seniors. Those of you who rely on these drugs the most cannot be hurt by fewer drug options and fewer research options, fewer development. We want to have access to the best drugs that technology and research can offer us at the lowest price possible in a true negotiated manner, not with coercion and headlocks. If you have any comments, feel free to comment below and share this with a friend or two. We value them, we value you, and we are here for you. If you have any questions about your Medicare options or your retirement options, we are here for you as well at seniorsolutions.net. Thank you for taking the time, and have a blessed rest of your day.